Welcome everyone once again to our final day of the Equity Conference, From Here to There, Building the Social Justice Bridge, with our sub-themes of radical visioning, hyper and invisibility, and strategies for co-liberation, care, and healing justice. My name is Sharon Elise. I am the Associate Vice President for Racial and Social Justice, and I am joining you from Luiseño lands here in Southern California. I am a lighter shade of brown, but my attitude is blackety black. I want to see what that looks like from the ASL interpreter. And I have an afro which keeps disappearing in my Zoom background, but it is there. And I have on earrings that are multicolored. I have glasses and wine-colored lipstick. I'm wearing a light brown turtleneck. And you can't tell by the fact that I'm sitting, but I am sort of tall at 5'7", and I am aging gracefully, I hope. It is again my pleasure to welcome you here, and now I'm going to ask Chris Cox to offer our land acknowledgement.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Cox. I'm the Associate Vice President for CFA's Council for Racial and Social Justice North. I'm glad to be here with you this morning. I am a Black man. I have glasses on that give a little bit of reflection in the screen. I am wearing a red sweatshirt this morning because it's nice and warm, even though it's not such cold weather these days, but it's nice to have a warm sweatshirt on in the morning. I have a CFA Equity Conference 2022 background behind me, and I'm glad to be here with you all. I'm dark skin. I think I have a good looking color. Nice dark skinned looking African-American man. Most of my hair is behind me. Short on the side, long in the back. I have locks. I'm glad to be here today talking to you from the land of the Muwekma Ohlone people, where I both live and work here in San Jose, California. And I'll start by offering a land acknowledgement for us this morning. We recognize that we stand on the territory and ancestral land of Native California Indians. We acknowledge the spiritual connection and rights as the original stewards and traditional caretakers of this land. We thank them for their strength, perseverance, and resistance. We recognize that every member of this community has and continues to benefit from the use and occupation of this land ever since it was taken by the land-grabbing settlers from the cities we now live and work in. Consistent with our values of reparations, community, and diversity, we have a responsibility to acknowledge and make visible our relationship as settlers in relation to California Native peoples. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm Indigenous sovereignty and will work to hold ourselves and the organizations we work on behalf of more attuned to the needs of American Indian and Indigenous peoples where we live, work, and organize.
Thank you, Chris. And now it is my pleasure to introduce this session and Dr. Cecil Canton. This session is entitled Dreamwork Makes the Team Work, and it is brought to you by Dr. Cecil Canton. I want to invoke what we learned earlier, if you hadn't already heard it before, in an earlier session, the Ubuntu philosophy, I am because we are. And I will say that reminds me so much of Cecil Canton, because so many of us are here. We are because he is. Dr. Cecil Canton. We walked into a room years ago, a crowded room at a conference table where Dr. Cecil Canton was leading a committee on affirmative action and telling us one day we will be a council and one day we will populate the head table at our assemblies. And we all laughed and said, oh, he's so cute. Cecil embodies the radical visioning that is one of the themes of this conference. He is a mentor, he is a leader, he is my brother. he is my friend. From the back of his book, which I will just see if I can make it show with my background. I cannot. Oh, well. Okay, from the back of his book, Dr. Cecil E. Canton, Professor Emeritus in the Division of Criminal Justice at California State University, Sacramento. Dr. Canton served as a member of the CFA's Board of Directors in his capacity as Associate Vice President and Chair of the Council for Affirmative Action. He also served as a member of the National Education Association's Membership Advisory Committee, member of the Executive Committee of the National Council for Higher Ed, and as a member at large of the Collective Bargaining Congress of the AAUP. Dr. Canton is co-author of The Politics of Survival in Academia, Narratives of Inequality, Resilience, and Success. And more recently, he is the author of a book that lives on my desk daily, Journey Toward a More Perfect Union. Without Dr. Canton, I do not imagine that we would be where we are in our anti-racism and social justice transformation. He led the way. He showed us the light. And again, we are here because he is. So with no further ado, it is my great pleasure to welcome Dr. Cecil Canton.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you all. I would like to share something with you. First of all, I want to do a shout out to Luke Wood, Dr. Woods. He did an absolutely amazing presentation and taught me some things I did not know, which is what conferences are all about. But I also want to say, I think he committed a microaggression against me because he showed that picture of me. God knows that was 30 years ago when I had hair and it was black. So I got to talk to him about that. At any rate, I want to share my screen with you. Dreamwork makes the team work. Why am I saying that? Because everything starts with a dream. Because you have to have a dream to make a dream come true. And let me move these pictures. I got these pictures. Okay, I got to get rid of. Somehow I'll get rid of it. Anyway, Dreamwork makes the team work. And it's important to recognize that when we tell a story, and I'm going to tell a story about our journey towards a more perfect union. And the reason why I want to tell this journey, I want to tell this story rather, is because it's really important that, that people know our story. But we are the hero in our own story. We are the hero in our own story. That is important to me. It's important that we all understand that. When I first came to CFA, I came into a meeting, first statewide meeting I came into. And that statewide meeting, I'm gonna find a way to get all these other pictures off of here, but anyway. I guess I can't. When I came into CFA, my first meeting, I noticed that there was almost no diversity in the room. I mean, there were a couple of folks of color, but for the most part, I was blinded by white. There was so much whiteness in that room. I was like, I can't believe this is a meeting of a union that represents me. There were 3 Black women who worked for CFA: Audrina Redmond, Jackie Teepin, and Rena Doyle. I stood with them back in the room and watched and said to them, this cannot be my union. And they said, yeah, this is your union. And I said, well, we're going to change this union. We are going to change it, okay? Because this cannot stand this way. I accepted the challenge to change the optics and the representation. It was not an easy, challenge to meet. I met with a lot of skepticism. Sharon talked about how she was skeptical. Charles was skeptical. A lot of folks were skeptical. But you know what? I said it earlier. You have to have a dream. Don't be afraid to dream. You have to have a dream to make a dream come true. A dream is what we do when we vision. And you can't vision without dreaming. And if you don't have a vision, well, the Bible talks about a people without a vision perish. So the challenge for me was, don't be afraid to dream, and don't be afraid of your dream. You have to have a dream to make a dream come true. Now now the book that Sharon was referencing is a book about our union and about how our union began the transformation to become an anti-racism and social justice union. But I'm going to tell the story a little bit from my perspective, because as I said, it was not easy to do this. I had to remember that I was the hero in my story, and I had to take heart from that. I had to sometimes, because I was working a lot of times alone, and I had to remember to be brave. It wasn't always easy. As I said, it was a nightmare in that first meeting. John Lewis says, change only happens when we get in the way. I was determined to get in the way of CFA. And I remember starting the African American caucus back in 2002, maybe it was 2003, because I realized we had to have something to cohere around. We had to have something that would allow some kind of substance, some kind of critical mass that would allow us to be present in this union. And I recognized that there needed to be a caucus. And so I think it was with Adrena, I started going around the campuses so that I could talk to people about joining this caucus. Again, Luke Woods, and I hope everybody heard him. He was prescient in what he said. I went up against all kinds of microaggressions. Some that were they were explicit racist. Explicit racism. I remember going to meetings when I was invalidated, okay? Racelit, I remember the race lighting, the microaggressions. I remember sometimes coming out of the meeting and going into my car and crying. I was so angry. I remember being in these meetings and having people look at me like I was speaking in tongues when I would ask a question or when I would make a statement. Now, one of the things that I know about me is I'm a very articulate person. So when someone can make a person who believes they're articulate feel inarticulate, you know there's something going on. It was not easy, but you know what? When you have a vision and a dream, because that's what's important, because the dream is important, the vision is important. Now, these are just a list of things that I was involved with when I was in the union, when I was in the union leadership, okay? You can read them for yourself. I'm not going to focus on those because those things are foundational for our union now. I note that the equity conference is no longer biannual; it's now an annual. That's really a focus. That's really a change in what we're doing and how we center the work that we're doing. I am so proud of the people who are leading this union. I'm proud to call them my friends and my colleagues, and I'm privileged to do that. First comes the dream, then comes the team. And you've got to be able to articulate that dream. And when people get the dream, they want to help you. They want to help you make that dream come true. I've had many people help me along the way where they have adopted the dream. And when they adopt the dream, let me tell you, there's nothing more powerful than an idea that time has come. My mother used to tell me that all the time. Cecil, remember, there's nothing more powerful than an idea that's time has come. So don't ever forget that. I never have, all right? She's also the reason why I really got involved in this union, because when I saw what I saw that first time, I thought, yeah, I'm not gonna do this. She told me when I was a young man, she said, if you don't like what you see in an organization, you got two choices. You can quit or you can change it. My mother was not one to quit. She was not a quitter. She said, quitters never win, and winners never quit. So first comes the dream, then comes the team. And in order to have a good team, you have to have team players. Because in order to have teamwork, you have to have team players. How do you get team players? Get them hooked on the dream. Whether it's winning a championship or transforming a union, get them hooked on the dream. And you cannot fail. You will not fail. I have been blessed with people who saw this as something that they could embrace, and then they embraced it. Wasn't easy, okay? I told you I went through some really rough times years ago when I first started in this union with the microaggressions and the downright racism that I experienced in this union. And that's another reason why I said, we're gonna change this. Charles and Sharon and so many others who I was with along the way, they experienced those things. They experienced those things right on their campuses from the chapters. And that's what made them reticent to be a part of the California Faculty Association. They had to be convinced that there was a possibility of change. John Lewis said it. You have to get in the way to make a change. It's the only way things happen. So I want to shout out to my CFA Dream Team who helped me along the way to introduce this transformation. Sharon Elise, Irma Jean Sims. I haven't seen Irma Jean in quite a while. I haven't seen Sharon in quite a while, except on these Zooms. Audrina Redmond. And I want to give another shout out to Jennifer Egan, who was the president during the time that we were implementing this change. Let me tell you what, Jen and I used to meet all the time. We met even before she became president. When she was president-elect, Jen and I would meet to talk about this dream, what we could do to transform this organization. She completely bought into it. She completely bought into transforming her life and herself. And I understand that she experienced some personal folks who personally questioned why she was doing this. That's my understanding. But she persisted. So I definitely want to tell her thank you for doing that. And we moved things to make this dream happen. Because you have to have a dream to make a dream come true. Change is inevitable, but growth is optional. Believe me, this organization was going to change, either become more racist or less racist, but change is inevitable. But the Dream Team saw the possibility of growth, of making sure that this organization would change in a way that would open it up and build it up and make it more powerful. if you ever came into the meetings that I used to run for the council, which the Council for Affirmative Action, we talked about what it would be like to change, how we could make a change in this organization, and why we needed to change this organization. Even these meetings now, this was an opportunity to bring people together to talk about their lived experiences and get a little respite. Be able to talk to people who aren't going to say, why are you saying that? Why are you questioning that? You're just a little too sensitive. We all knew what we were going through. I want to thank Luke Wood for giving us the language to describe what it was that we were going through, okay? Because I didn't know what I was going through sitting in the car crying after meetings. I didn't know what I was going through when I sat there and people were having meetings that I wasn't a part of. I didn't know what I was going through when, when people would question anything that I said and make me feel like I was stupid. I didn't know what I was talking about. How many of you have gone through and felt that? And maybe still feel that way? Well, we have to push back on that. We have to make sure that that's not the way we get treated. You don't deserve to be treated that way. You should not accept being treated that way. Eventually, I just kept pushing folks, okay, in my way, okay? Pushing folks to realize this is not what we should be doing. Challenging the stereotypes and challenging the narrative that somehow Black people are stupid. People of color are stupid. They don't know anything. Only white people know stuff. When we brought in a consultant, the consultant we brought in to help us through this transformation was white. There was a lot of questioning about why we would bring in a white consultant to get us into a transformation. But I recognize this. I recognize that the great majority of our leaders at the time and our members are white. And let me just say this, whether you like it, because this is part of the courageous conversation we had. White people only listen to white people. At least that's what was going on at the time. There were lots of other trainers and consultants we could have brought in. I met many of them. But I knew that they would probably go through the same thing I was going through. They would be dismissed. Their direction would be dismissed. They would be relegated to, well, yeah, okay, so let's move on to really what's important. We had to ask ourselves, and I asked this question many times in our council meeting. What would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail? What would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail? We attempted something that this union had never attempted before. We said, we're going to transform. We're going to transform this union. I know there was a lot of skepticism in the beginning, and I know there was a lot of suspicion on the part of the leadership of this organization in the beginning. What is he doing? What are they doing? What are they talking about? Interestingly, our meetings and our conference calls got more and more and more people in them, which I'm sure just increased the paranoia of the leadership about what was going on here. But what was going on here was something really powerful. It was the power of inclusion. It was the power of people feeling that somewhere along the line, somehow they had found a place where they could actually feel welcome. And so we built on that. And we started challenging things in the union. And then we started implementing things in the union because we recognized that we have to be the role model. We are the ones we are waiting for. And we put pressure on our union. The first pressure was creating the Council for Affirmative Action. The second pressure was to look at unconscious bias and come up with a workshop. We didn't ask permission, because if you ask permission, people can tell you no. No. And we didn't have to ask for forgiveness either, because I think intuitively people started to realize what was going on. It was organic. What was going on was the building of an internal mechanism in this union that was going to do a couple of things. One, it was going to allow people to come in, and we created a basis for the caucuses to start to find a way to become really important in this union through the council. And two, we started building leaders. I can tell you that every one of the leaders, at least during the time that I was here, and even now, most of the leaders in this organization came through the Council for Affirmative Action, or they will come through the Council for Racial and Social Justice. It's going to happen because when you get to the soul of things, when you identify what's really, really, really right and just, I can tell you that people, when they embrace justice, it just takes the weight off of them. It takes the weight right off their shoulders. When I don't have to try to suppress you and oppress you. As my father said, if you want to keep a man in a hole, you got to be in that hole with him. That's what he told me, and he got home when I was old enough to understand from World War II. If you want to keep a man in a hole, he said, you got to be in that hole with him. Nobody wants to be in that hole. Nobody wants to be in that hole. But because there's all this pressure about what society was requiring, folks felt that they needed to keep us in that hole, but they had to be in the hole too. So getting out of the hole was where we wanted to go. The work. Let me tell you what, we can look at all the things that the council did. We can look at all the things that this union is doing, but the essential work was building relationships. I looked at this as, we're going to build relationships. We're going to transform this union one person at a time. So we're going to build the relationships that way. We're not going to assume that people are going to just take everything that we say. So we had to articulate a vision of anti-racism, social justice, and then convince folks that we needed to transform, that it would make us so much stronger and make us so much more powerful. For those of you, I don't know who's on this Zoom, but if you remember when we used to, in our meetings in the council, we used to talk about together, we are powerful. Together, we are powerful. So building relationships was important. It helped us in everything in terms of our credibility. We had to somehow figure out how to make, to tie people's self-interest to the overall common interest of the union for transforming our union. We had to go from here to there, but we had to do it by making sure that people understood what we were trying to do and being able to buy into it, being able to figure out that this was in their interest to do this. We had to convince the officers, the board, the assembly, faculty, ultimately the CSU, that this change is necessary. We had big vision. Our vision was what we're going to do is going to change California and the world. I know people said to me, that's pretty big. And I said, you have to have a dream, and you have to have a big dream to make a big dream come true. Well, part of this work, we know that we'll probably never be done, but we're going to continue to move in that direction. And we recognize and accepted and affirmed that the work will be part of everything we do. The work is the transformation. The work is anti-racism and social justice transformation. The work is anti-racism. That's what we're going to do. But we knew we had to develop a common language and framing so that people could, when we talk to one another, we could understand what we were saying. That was one of the first things that we had to do. And then be courageous to challenge white supremacy and to call it what it is, white supremacy in our union. No one had ever wanted to talk about that before. But once we were able to come out and people realized that their hair wouldn't be set on fire when they said white supremacy, wow, all of a sudden we were able to talk together and understand what we were talking about. The work also included building and sharing power and taking advantage of all the diverse parts of our organization and letting them shine, letting them come to the fore, letting them be part of the leadership. When I saw that first meeting, I said, it could not be this way. It had to change. When you look at this organization today, you see the change that we talked about because we got in the way. We centered anti-racism and social justice transformation. We use anti-racism as a verb, not some kind of a descriptor. We had to get the board of directors to commit funding. Again, I'm going to thank Jen Egan, who really embraced this whole process. Jen and I would talk every week before our meetings. We would talk every week about what we were going to do and what we were going to try to accomplish. We adopted anti-racism and ARSJT principles. Those principles that I hope are still being circulated. We changed governing documents and bylaws because one of the things we said as part of what we were going to do in this transformation was look at our governing documents. Look at those things that animated this union and see where racism, even if it was subtle, where that racism was there, that was stopping our progress. That was a really huge undertaking. But our leadership committed to that. And we have changed those governing documents and those bylaws so that whatever we are doing, we look through that lens and we use ARSJT as our lens. Some people will call it, critical race theory. That's fine. Call it whatever you want, but that's what we use. And we started to center our practices in this organization around ARSJT. All of a sudden now you have us doing things very, very differently. And people wondering, what's going on? What's different? Why are you different and what's different? Was it easy? I can tell you it was not. There were lots of people in this union who dropped this union because they did not agree with what we were doing. They wanted us to remain a bread and butter union. And that's fine, but that's not enough. I can tell you right now, having looked at that contract that this leadership team got for our members, all the bread and butter you want is there. That's most bread and butter I've seen in a long time. And they centered what they were getting around ARSJT, or anti-racism and social justice. It allowed us to look at our recruitment and our hiring and our promotion process and start to become more fair, start to become more equitable, more just. It makes it so much easier when the organization is just. I said, if you're not at the table during those negotiations, you're on the menu. But not only then, I said that for the fact that our organization needed to look at who was the leadership? Who was getting the opportunities for leadership? Who was making the decision making? Was it Democratic? Or was it small private groups, which is what it was for a long time? As I said, there were meetings I never was invited to. Small groups are fine to develop agendas and that kind of thing, but they don't work when you're trying to run a democratic union. And we are a democratic union. So we've done a lot of things that have been positive on the campuses. We've done podcasts. We have lunch and learns on the campus. We worked with the Dreamers, our students, and Black Lives Matter to say, we are embracing these principles of anti-racism and social justice and equity. We are going to embrace these things because that's who we are and that's who we want to be. If you don't name it, you can't tame it. Luke, thank you for giving me the words. Okay, thank you for giving me the name. Mike, I mean, I knew about microaggressions, but back then when I was being microaggressed, believe me, when you're in the middle of it, it's hard to come up with a term. It's hard. You just know something's happening, but you may not even be able to describe what it is. Thank you for giving us race lighting. Thank you for making meaning out of racial battle fatigue. Lord knows, by the time I was finished, ready to retire in this union, I was like, you talk about fatigue, but let me just say this. Every day we're in a battle. We're either in a battle at home, we're in a battle at work, we're in a battle in our union. Every day, and it's got to be worth it. Okay. You will hear me quote my mother and my grandmother all the time. Because my mother told me when I was about 14 and I questioned why she was doing all this work in the community when nobody else was doing, nobody else was fighting, nobody else was standing up. And I said, why are you doing that? Don't you get tired? And she looked at me and she said, Cecil, of course I get tired. Everybody gets tired. And everybody has a right to be tired. But nobody has a right to stop. That was the spirit of my mother. I lost her too early in my life. Why do we do this? Why are we doing these things? When we become more inclusive, we become stronger. Why? Because we have to acknowledge that we are also part of the problem. Why? Because we have to engage in courageous conversations about and challenging racism and discrimination in our union, on our campuses, and wherever we find it. We have to do that. And we have to practice anti-racism and non-discrimination behavior with one another, with our students, with our colleagues, and we have to model the way. That's our responsibility. And we have to accept and not allow anyone to convince us otherwise that fairness and justice should be faculty working conditions. If we can do that, then we will get good contracts and we will have good relationships with our colleagues and our students. And even the administrators. We don't all have a Luke Wood who's so enlightened, but that's not to say that we can't enlighten those who we do have. So the story, our story is a work in progress. We have to continue to dream and dream bigger than our facts. What do I mean? We can cite statistics, we can look at all these things, how many, but we gotta dream bigger than that. We have to dream bigger and bigger because you have to have a dream, a big dream, to make a big dream come true. And remember that we're the heroes in our story. We are the heroes, and we must not, cannot, and dare not fail as we make our progress in our story. Keep the dream alive. Don't let it die. And I have confidence with the leadership of this organization and this group here. I understand we've got some like 500 people who applied to be at this equity conference. I remember when we were looking, we were happy when we had 50. I remember doing these equity conferences. Charles said he's done 4 of them, or 3 or 4 of them. I know, Charles, I did them all before you came on. But Charles, and I'll give a shout out to Jose Centron. Charles and Jose, they stepped up to the plate and they did a marvelous job of running and leading us through these equity conferences. I thank you. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. All right, so what do we need to do next? We need to tell our story. We need to tell our story. We need to document our successes and our challenges. We need to show why and how it can be done. We need to share our common history with our members. One of the things we realized, there was two things we didn't have in common as we started this transformation. One was language to talk to one another, because everybody thought whatever we were saying, everybody had a different interpretation. And the second was we didn't have a common history. We didn't know where we came from. We didn't know how we got to where we were. The reason I wrote that book was to give us a common history. Here's why we are doing what we're doing. Here's where we came from, and here's where we want to go. Now, I'm going to say this. I think every member ought to have a book. Every member ought to have a book. That should be a benefit. Non-members can't get the book, but members should be able to get the book. Ask CFA for your book. I'm going to put pressure on the leadership here. Ask CFA for your book. If you don't have a book, then you need to have one. And this is the story. Journey toward a more perfect union. That's our story. That's my story. And that book contains our story. That's our story. Okay, my wife reminded me. She said, Cecil, she said, the story of we is more powerful than the story of me. That transformed me. It changed the thrust of this story, because it became the story of us. We have a story. We are the heroes in this story. We are the heroes who are carrying this union, this CSU, our students, our state, and maybe our nation to another level. Don't forget that you're the hero. This is your story. Embrace it. Acknowledge it. Revel in it. Brag about it. Remember, too, justice is everybody's right and everybody's fight. Don't ever forget that. We are about justice. It's everybody's right and everybody's fight. Thank you for inspiring me. I think we have questions and answers. I don't know how much time I took, but I hope I did what I had to do. Thank you for inspiring me, everyone. I'm done.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Cecil.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for being a warrior.
Always.
Thank
Stop
you for
sharing
being
your
a stop
screen.
share. How do I stop sharing this thing? Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
There we go. Now, I'll turn my video back on and we will open up for questions. We have one that's, this is a comment to which I would ask you to respond.
Okay.
It says, I celebrate all the work that has been done to create a more fair and just union. I am grateful to you for the many ways in which you have inspired me to continue promoting CFA on campus. I also have battle scars from recent abusive conduct within the union that stopped only after intervention from CFA statewide. I do have your mother's spirit, but I confess it. I feel alone and exhausted. Still, I thank you for all that you continue to do to keep the dream alive.
Thank you. Thank you. I know sometimes it is difficult when you feel like you're alone. We need to find allies. We need to find people who have similar feelings. And believe me, there's somebody on your campus who's going through that same thing. They don't have to be in your department. They can just be there and you'll find them because you'll see the pain, the same pain you express. You'll see that pain on them. Get with them, talk to them, give them an opportunity where they can. We all want to be heard. Above all else, we want to be heard by other people. You be their sounding board and let them be your sounding board, because there's strength in numbers. Together, we're powerful.
Sharon, can I?
I was just texting you. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Cecil, so much for all of your leadership and your continuing leadership. You have been an inspiration for me and for so many of us. And, you know, I call you, we talk regularly, and I'm always inspired when we talk. I just wanted to announce today that the CFA Board of Directors has approved a new name for our conference room, finally known as the Fishbowl at CFA headquarters. That room will forever be named the Dr. Cecil E. Canton Social Justice Room. And as soon as we get the plaque, we'll make sure it's there, but you're in Sacramento and you'll be able to stop by and see the naming of that room. Dr. Cecil E. Canton Social Justice Room.
I am speechless. It's not easy to make me speechless. I am speechless. I am so honored. I don't know what to say. I want to cry.
Well, we were kind of crying throughout your whole presentation because it really brought the real work and our lived experiences in CFA. And we wouldn't be here without you letting us take part in the dream.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Chris. Thank you all. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. I don't know what to say. Thank you. Just say thank you.
We have, let's see, a lot of just honor and glory in the Q&A. Let me see if we have any questions. I'll just tell you that Lisa Kawamura from SLO says, thank you, Cecil, miss you and thankful for your talk today. Gilda Bloom-Levitt says, bravo. Leslie Bryan says, love it, making big decisions in the Canton room. Oh, I can remember a lot of stuff happening in that.
Yeah.
The fishbowl. Les Rodriguez, congratulations, Dr. Canton. Vivian Price, thanks for your bravery and inspiration. Gloria Rhodes, congratulations, Dr. Canton. Thank you for paving the way. Cecil, I have a question for you.
Okay.
What is it like now, being that I do dream of someday retirement? What is it like? What is it like for you now? I know we heard from Dr. Gloria Ladson-Billings that she's supposed to be retired, but she's still doing all this work. And I wonder, you know, can you share with us what you are doing now? And has your racial battle fatigue subsided at all?
That's really interesting. That's an interesting question. Some of you know that once I retired, I started doing a business. A business. I decided that with my criminal justice background, and I used to like to go, as a peace officer, I used to like to go to the range and shoot. And I decided I was going to continue my teaching by becoming an instructor, firearms instructor. Yesterday, I went to it wasn't yesterday, it was the day before yesterday. I went to the place where I'm hired as a part-time instructor. And I wore my uniform, my shirt with the name of the gun range on it, SAC gun range. I was in there, I sat down, and there were two white gentlemen shooting in they were in their lane shooting. Well, they turned around and looked at me, and I had on this red shirt that says Sacramento Gun Club. And this gentleman looked at me and he said, "That's a really nice shirt. Where'd you get it?" I almost said I stole it, okay? But I didn't. Because behind his question wasn't, where'd I get it? It was, what are you doing with it? Okay, it was real clear, because when I said to him, well, I work here, he said, I've never seen you before. I said, well, I'm a part-time instructor. Never seen you before. And when he was leaving, and he came up to me, "Thank you, sir. Nice meeting you." And I thought, this man ignored me the entire time I was there when I had something on, and he was in his lane, he couldn't see my shirt. I had a friend who just recently had an experience where he was driving to somewhere up in Sonoma County, going to some retreat. And he pulled over to the side because he lost signal on his GPS. And and he said, this white man in the truck stopped and asked him what was wrong. He said, well, I'm just trying to figure out, how to get my GPS. And he said, so where are you going? So I'm going to a church retreat. He said, where? Oh, such and such and such. Why? What are you doing here? Basically, he was questioning him. Why are you here? You shouldn't be here. You don't belong here. Those are microaggressions. In fact, that's bordered on racism right there. But those are the kinds of things that people experience that we have to push back on, that we have to not tolerate, not accept. In fact, tell people, no, we're not doing this. We're not going to do this again, okay? Because this is not right. It is not just, and I'm not going to tolerate it. I'm not going to accept it. So just two examples this week, one with me and one shared by a friend of mine, who, by the way, who is a colleague at Sac State, okay? I don't know that he's ever gone through that before, okay? Because some have never had those experiences where people go and challenge you, and they're not challenging you directly, but it's that indirect aggression that, okay, well, kind of, why are you here? Oh, you are so articulate, meaning not like the others. You're just not like the others. You're really articulate. So watch those. My mother used to call them left-handed compliments. Well, of course, I was right-handed. My twin brother is left-handed, but she used to call them left-handed compliments. They're compliments that come at you, but they're not really compliments. They're really saying to you, I don't know why you are who you are, and I don't know that you fit here. We got a lot of that going on. I took a long time to answer that one question. So don't tolerate it. Push back on it. After a while, Frederick Douglass has a saying that I've embraced. I'll share it with you. I've shared it before, and I'll share it again. Frederick Douglass said that the slave that's whipped easiest is the one that's whipped oftenest. I have never forgotten that. And I vowed in my life never to be the easy one. Don't be the easy one.
So Cecil, one of our sub-themes for this conference concerns care and healing justice. And one of the things we've realized in this work, perhaps without explicitly saying this is about treating racial battle fatigue, but that doing this work can be very traumatizing, especially as we're living through multiple pandemics of COVID and systemic racism and virulent anti-Black racism. And so have you found that you turned to self-care, radical self-care in dealing with your own racial battle fatigue?
Let me just say this. My wife and I spent a lot of time traveling. We get out of town quite a bit. but that's one way that we do self-care. These last 2 years have taken a toll on all of us. Okay, I have found that I'm not. I don't know that I gotten any grayer. I think I've lost more here, but it takes a toll on all of us. And so for me, it's about waking up in the morning, feeling grateful. It's about praying and thanking God for allowing me another day on this earth, because I recognize that all the alarm clocks in the world won't wake me up if God doesn't do that. It's about calling my wife in the morning, because we still are on both coasts, and talking to her in the morning and talking to her in the evening. It's about calling my friends, calling my brothers, talking to them, calling my friends. I have a very special, my best friend. She knows who she is. She's worked with us. In fact, I used to think of her as more of a faculty than she was a staff person, but she was always involved with CFA. Patricia Holmes. Many of you know her. You've seen her at events. I get support from folks like that who keep me going, who I can talk to, I can pray with. Pat is a prayer warrior, so I pray with her. And just making sure that, I don't know if we call it radical, but I think anytime you can do self-care, maybe it's radical. So those are the kinds of things I do. I love traveling. Having reached this age, now I realize that traveling is harder now that I'm as old as I am, but I still love it. It's been very difficult the last 2 years, but my wife and I are committed to doing it and to going. And we were just in Hawaii just last month. It was a nice trip. And we're going to be in Aruba next month. So, and we got cruises coming up. We've got all kinds of things. But for me, that's the self-care. That's the doing something that's going to be a little different, that you enjoy doing, and just embracing your friends, embracing the people who you care about and who you love. That's what I call it. That's what I do.
Thank you. Now, one of the things you shared in your presentation was the importance of relational organizing. And I wonder if you could give us some advice, because in this time of operating primarily on Zoom, we're very challenged in this relational organizing. And do you have some advice for how we make that come alive?
First of all, I'm hoping that we won't always having to do things on Zoom, because people need to be connected to one another. I always was inspired and always recharged at the Equity Conference. That was one of the things that the Equity Conference did for me, and I know for so many others. It allowed us to recharge, to connect with one another. We get energy from one another. We get recharged from one another. So again, I hope this is not going to be I know it's not going to be the future. Parts of this will be the future. But I would say this, there are all parts of our lives. We have other aspects of our lives. When I talk to Charles, for instance, I always say to Charles, make sure you find something else that you're going to do, because being a union thug can be very, very, very challenging, and it's very consuming. And so you need to be able to find some time for you. You need to be able to find something that makes you happy, that you can then embrace and do, and you need to encourage others to do that. Find that which makes you happy. Find that thing, that will allow you to to just breathe. Or sometimes they say exhale, okay? But allow you to just do that. We are not just union people. We are not just teachers. We are intersectional. We are so many different things. Find the other sections. Embrace those other sections of you. Embrace those other things that make you who you are, aside from just doing this racial justice work. I know you can't get away from it because it's a battle we have to fight. My mother told me, we can't stop. But you need to charge sometimes. You need to recharge. Sometimes you just need to take a little break. You're not stopping. You're just taking a little break because that's a smart thing to do.
Yeah, I think we will be do some recharging soon. Kathy Jameson has a question for you.
Right.
She asks, hello, Dr. Canton. So great to see you. Given your work in CJ and social justice, so criminal justice and social justice, I wonder what you might advise in terms of generating authentic and action-oriented dialogue in and through our work group on reduction in policing. There's policing on campus. Do you want me to repeat it or you got it?
No, I got it. I know it's very, very difficult. One of the things that we're going to have to engage in, and I was at a joint meeting of all the unions after a board of trustees meeting one time, and the police union was there represented. Now I know we have some challenges with the police union. Because we're not always sure whose side they're on. I guess that's the issue. Again, I believe in relational organizing. I believe in building relationships, and they don't start when you just walk into a room with somebody. They start. Hopefully, they'll start before that. And you're not negotiating with somebody. I don't know that this society is ever going to abolish. Put my shirt on, Rob. I don't know that it'll always that it will be about abolishing police. I know when I first started working in the New York State prison system, when I first started working there, it was a job I was offered, and I was like the superintendent of schools, and I realized that there are some people who don't play nicely in the sandbox. Somebody's going to have to deal with that. But what I see is folks being abused, and that's not acceptable. Abuse is not acceptable. Accountability is acceptable. Holding people accountable is totally acceptable. But building relationships with people so that they see us, we know people, when people have these attitudes about microaggressions and racism, they don't see you fully human. They don't see you as a fully human person to interact with. What we've got to do is somehow, as part of the training, because I did this, let me just say this, when I was working in New York State in the prison system, one of the first things I did when I got there was go through some of the training that the correctional officers were going through. And I realized that the focus in that training was on guns and how to stop somebody. And, and I went to the training people and I said, where's the intervention with your mouth? Where's the intervention with your head? If all you got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. If you put a gun in somebody's hand, they're going to use it. So where is how do we reduce conflict? How do we reduce conflict? Yeah, you could shoot somebody. You can beat their head in. That's one way of doing it. That's not the preferred way, because believe me, people will come after you eventually if they get the chance. I quoted Attica, which had happened like 8 years before I got there. when people are abused, they will wait for the opportunity to abuse you because hurt people will hurt people. So how can we change that so that we start to talk about how we arm our folks with some more things on their tool belt than just a gun and a club? Okay, let's teach them how to use their mouth because that's the most important tool you have, and your head. And if you can diffuse a situation by using your head through your mouth, you won't have to worry about having to tussle with somebody because believe me, I'm not looking to be fighting somebody every day. And most of the police and folks in law enforcement don't want to fight anybody. Okay, they want to go home. Okay, they want to go home just like you do. And so the issue has to do with accountability. It has to do with accountability. How do we make them accountable so that they are accountable to us, not us accountable to them? Well, maybe it's a mutual accountability, but it's not mutual right now. We have given the police a lot of power and they take it and they abuse it because if people have power and there's no accountability, they're going to use it and they're going to abuse it.
Yeah, I think the faculty are looking for something besides the hammer of the police.
That's right.
Mo Miller has a question for you. How do we manage or handle comments from our members who say, and keeping in mind that the leadership now is mostly BIPOC, how do we manage or handle comments from our members who say the union is no longer for white people when we know it's about how our leadership looks?
Because they're looking at the wrong thing. And I would tell them, is our union just? Is our union equitable? There was no challenge and no question when the leadership was all white. Where was the problem then? If there was no problem then for you, then there should be no problem for you now when we've got people in there who represent and who want to be just and who want to be equitable. Because I can tell you, there was no concern about equitability or equality or even justice. Well, there might have been some concern about justice, but really, if you read the book, you realize they didn't care that there were no folks of color in this union. They just kept on working, doing what they were doing. Okay, we had to raise that up to them. And the only way we could do that was to demand that we have an opportunity to sit at that table. Because if you're not at the table, I don't have to tell you the rest of it. You're on the menu.
Well, you also bring to mind that one of the big sections of your book concerns the fight that women waged to become leaders and to have voice in the union. Could you say a few comments about that?
Sure. Let me just say that those women, Susan Meisenhelder and Lil Tays and Jen Egan and others who were working on that behalf, who like yourself, Sharon, and others, you guys had to wage a war in order to be seen. I mean, and in order to be heard. So that was an important battle because that set the stage for where we are today. Someone had to engage that battle first. That was long before I got there. Susan Meisenhelder appointed me to the Affirmative Action Committee. She asked me, she said, what committee you want? I got this one, I got that. I said, I'll take Affirmative Action. When it was a committee of, I think, 5 people representing the entire state, 5 people. We've come a long way from that. But I had people challenging me about, even when we became the Council for Affirmative Action, because they said we couldn't use the word affirmative action because 209 banned it. Well, 209 didn't ban the use of the word. And in fact, 209 didn't stop us from doing the things we needed to do. But folks used it as an excuse and a shield and a hiding place. And we put together something, the pamphlet that we put together said, here's how you can use this. We're not getting rid of affirmative action, okay? Affirmative action is what we're going to do. And we were proud to do it. Now, we have now evolved. You know, it was really propitious that as I was thinking about stepping down, the union and the council was talking about changing its thrust from affirmative action to racial and social justice. Much bigger. That's a bigger dream. That's a much bigger dream. And I love that. I love the fact that that we keep evolving and we keep dreaming and we keep embracing, because it embraces many, many more people. Okay. We got more caucuses. I understand there's a Palestinian, Arab, and Muslim caucus now. That's just fantastic. We make space for more people, and we benefit because they come in and they bring their perspective. It's not always easy, Sharon. You know that. Okay, you know it's not always easy. Okay, because when you have an orthodoxy and it gets challenged, it's not easy. But the fact that we're open to challenge the orthodoxy, that we're open to embrace something else, that's how we grow. That's how we get stronger. This organization will get stronger because it's open to being stronger. And it's open for others to come in and say, I challenge that. That's what you said, but I challenge that. That's okay. Okay? That's perfectly okay that we get challenged and that we can rise to the challenge. I am so proud of CFA. I talk about CFA all the time. And so it speaks to another thing. Once you're in CFA, you're always in CFA. You never get away from CFA. But then for me, why would I want to, given what this organization has done and what it represents? Why would I want to get away? I'm proud of it. I still wear my CFA stuff even when I'm not going to a meeting. People say, what's CFA? California Faculty Association. You should know about that. You should hear about that. That's an anti-racist social justice organization. And it's changing the California State University system. And it's going to change California.
Now, you sort of addressed this, but Melissa has a question. How do we respond to members, or how can we respond to members who say they don't agree with our anti-racism and social justice positions?
Then I would ask them, tell me why you don't agree. What is it that you don't agree with? Is it justice? Is it equality? Is it equity? What don't you agree with? Because that's what our position is, that everyone gets treated in a way that benefits them and honors them. So what is it that you think we're doing that doesn't do that? I wouldn't be trying to be defensive. I'd just be asking, what is it that you don't think we're doing? And don't tell me it's because you don't see any white people, because this organization is mostly white people. Okay. And the fact of the matter is that there's still white people involved on the campuses. So what is it that you see a small group of folks who are the leaders of the statewide, but why don't you look at your campus? What's that leadership look like? How diverse is that? I don't answer the question, but that's how I'd answer.
No, I think that's, I love the part where you ask them, what is it that you don't agree with? Is it anti-racism? Is it the social justice?
Right. Is it equality? What don't you agree with?
Because I really like how you started off talking about how our CBA not only addressed bread and butter issues, and you and I, as people who were in this system for such a long time, know that we have never seen a contract that had all these different raises in it.
Right. That's right.
Range elevations for lecturers, right? A pathway to tenure.
Cultural taxation.
General salary increase.
Cultural taxation. You guys
increase.
actually talk about cultural taxation.
And we actually got
amazing.
Them to name it. We got them to name it, and we are hoping to tame it. But we know it won't be tamed until we are really able to transform the face of the faculty, who are still mostly white.
Mm-hmm. Well, we all have a responsibility for carrying that on our campuses, because that's the challenge. The challenge is bringing all this wonderful work to the campuses so that our faculty, our colleagues can also be role models for our students in a way that advances this work, advances equity, advances equality, advances justice. I don't know how to put it.
Yeah, and certainly when we change who is at the table, we change what is on the menu.
Yes,
And we
did.
would not have done the things we have done if we hadn't seen this transformation. And I will just say, in the same way that I know in my academic department, we are now majority BIPOC faculty. The things that concern us are different, right? Our agenda is transformed.
And that's intentional. That's not by accident.
That's right.
Not by accident. It will not happen by accident. They say that diversity is real, but inclusion is something else. Okay, we don't include people. Okay, there's a great diversity around us. Okay, and that's just reality. Inclusion is not that's not necessarily the reality we have faced. So, for those of you who are asking the questions, who are listening, all I can say is this: the battle is not over. What did Winston Churchill say? Something about it's not the beginning of the end. It's not even the end of the beginning. We know we got a battle out there to do, but as long as we battle together, we're going to win. We are going to win because we are stronger together than all that stuff that's out there.
So another comment and question for you. Audrina Redmond harkens to a video, which I think most of us have seen, and we use it in our interruption racism workshop, the Kimberly Jones video, where she talks about, why are you so surprised that Black people are looting? We don't own anything. And then she says, you should be glad this is not about revenge. About equity, it's about equality.
Right. That's so true. That is so true. It's amazing that we haven't thought about revenge, that we haven't tried to pursue revenge. My answer to that is because we believe in democracy. We believe in saving this democracy. We believe in saving this democracy more than anybody else out there. Okay, because we never had it. We want it. Okay, I remember working, running the higher education program in the state prison for New York, and people were saying, "Well, why are we doing?" I said, because when you teach them the values of higher education, they want a piece of the rock. They're not going to go out there and kill somebody for it. They want to earn it. They want to have it just like you do. They want to have those values the same way you do. So why not help them to do that rather than locking them up forever and ever, which I always thought was crazy. I've seen too much talent, too many geniuses locked up, and they could be benefiting this world, in some way, but we got them stored away someplace in some cage. I know there's some people who probably we need to keep away, but we have too many folks kept away. Okay, and they all and too many folks who don't look like the majority of people in this country, which is changing. That majority, and maybe that's part of the frightening part of this thing. People feel frightened by the change. Well, change is inevitable. Growth is optional.
A last question from Gilda Bloom.
Hey,
Cecil,
Gilda.
my old friend and fellow New Yorker, a question for you, please. When are we going to get union people and people of color in administrative positions in the CSU? We've got that one Luke Wood. She didn't say that, I did.
I know.
This fiasco with Chancellor Castro is a shameful example of what we don't want. Not just the Title IX cover-up, but the salary of $645,000 for a chancellor. Imagine if we had no chancellor and just gave free tuition to our undergrads.
Oh, okay.
So your
Okay. I'm not sure how to answer that question. the bottom line is that the CSU needs to change. It embraced a business model, and that business model is a failed model. Okay, it's a failed model. We are an institution of higher education, of learning. Okay, we don't need a CEO. Okay, we don't need a chief executive officer. We have presidents. You see, the UC has chancellors. Okay, we need to be going about redefining what it is that they do, because we have forced them to become fundraisers, and that becomes their focus, not leading the campus. They don't lead the campus. And so if you have an institution of higher education and higher learning, who leads that? It's got to be somebody who also focuses on higher education and learning. If all they're going to focus on is, I know how to raise money, well, that's already telling you what this is all about. And we're going to get, if you do the same things, you're going to get the same thing. And we're doing the same thing. They're going to bring in somebody else who's going to be just as horrible, because that's what I've seen. Because the people who are the trustees, they're performative in their interest in higher education, in learning, period. These are political appointees. They are status seekers. They get the status of saying, I'm a trustee. I've watched some of these people. I've talked to some of these people in the past. When they first come on, they speak very idealistically, but after a while, it's about, hey, I'm part of an elite club. That's what I like. That's what I'm doing. And by the way, as long as I can keep here and keep getting reappointed, I'm good with that. I hate to say that, but that's what we have. And so they bring people in with the same interests and the same values. Okay. You think you bring, and the fact that they hide who's coming, no, at least not the chancellor, but well, for the most part, every president gets hidden. You don't get a chance to know who that person is until they show up on your campus talking about they're the president. How's that working for us?
Yeah, that is one of the things we've been saying, is there must be transparency in the process. And certainly, wouldn't it be great if our trustees and chancellor came from similar experiences as our students and really understood who it is that we are serving for California?
Well, they say that they do, because they'll bring somebody in who looks Hispanic, but his values very, very different, and they'll say, I grew up in the barrio. Yeah, really? So when did you leave it? When did it leave you?
That's right.
Anyway, we need accountability. They don't, students and faculty and staff should be holding them accountable. That's what we should be doing. And until we can get the politics right, and until they can make a commitment that that education is a right, and that people have a right to an education, and that it's a public good. So public good get paid for by the public, not an individual benefit, which is what they say it is. They want to see it that way. It is a benefit. But look what California did for so long when it was a public good.
Yeah,
California was the model of the country, probably of the world, when it was a public good, and California was supporting it. But then, you know what I say? As the students got darker,
the funding
got lighter.
That is the truth. Well, Cecil, our time has come to a close.
I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. I thank you for addressing all the comments. I will tell you there are many more comments expressing love, appreciation, and thanks for everything you have given us. And I want to tell our audience that we have been conferring on side chat, on text, and you will be able to get Cecil's book. Members can get Cecil's book. Will be available to you, and we will, I'm sure, send out a notice on how that can happen. In the meantime, what we are going to do is take a 5-minute break, And so you'll hear music playing, and then we will come back for our closing reflections on this amazing equity conference that we would not be here. We are, because Cecil is. And thank you so much, Cecil.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. You have honored me. You have honored me in a way I never expected to be honored. Thank you so much.
Only because you deserve it, Cecil.